Welcome to another episode of the Disciple of Yahshua. Thank you for being here. Shalom, hello, bonjour, wherever you're from. And may God bless you all. Thank you to my subscribers and followers. Please hit the likes and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. And as you know, this channel is designated. All funding will go to aiding people in our backyards and our nations that don't have anything and are struggling, living in tent encampments, and abroad, nations that are mission fields, that sort of thing, nations that are poor. That's what the funding is. That's the promise of this channel. I have two other channels that is solely my personal channels. This channel is the Lord's channel. I do on his behalf to get the gospel out to the four corners of the earth and to raise money for the less fortunate. So I would appreciate your support because, as you know, with YouTube or that type of thing, you get enough numbers of subscriptions and likes, it can get you into a place where you make money from YouTube. And that would be great because that would all go towards helping less fortunate, which is where Christ's heart is. So please, I would muchly um, appreciate you um, helping this ministry, as that's exactly what it is. That's why I put my own funding towards this. That's why I know the Lord knows I pay my tithes. By that, I put funding towards people of less fortunate, putting the money directly into that and this channel. So it's in the ministry. It's going in the ministry to help aid others. And we should all do our part. So if you are somebody who is blessed with more, it'd be muchly appreciated because that's what this show is about where I actually had a vacation. And I have to once again thank my brother and sister-in-law. How gracious of them. I can never thank them enough because I couldn't have afforded this trip. And it was a gift, and I thank them immensely. It was very enlightening to the point where I want to go back now and do as much as I can on a yearly basis if I can make it happen. Um, so that's something I personally want to do, um, just to help these people. I met a lot of less fortunate people that need help up there as well, and I'll get into that. But if you would like to help this channel, subscribe, tell your friends and family. Um, Again, share it. And if you want to send funding now on your own to this channel, my email's attached. You can always email me and we can set up a way to get the funding here so that we can do something with it. So I'm not going to beg, but I'm asking on behalf of the Lord's work for your assistance. So with that being said, we're going to get right to it. I promised a special show, and how it worked out where I was blessed immensely. Now I see that I have something to work on the Lord's. And that's the thing. We as disciples of Christ, you're never on vacation from the ministry. So in me getting a vacation, I really got to take in the natural several points, like the natural beauty. And sometimes we don't think of and I love nature because that's why I bought a property a few years back. Uh, that's in, like the woods around here, just because I love nature. But to see the beauty in another nation that's not in North America uh, was gorgeous. Always was, I never could understand how people would go regularly. Now I do, because the beauty and aiding the people are wonderful. You become like family. That's how these people are. They're so gracious. So I just was blown away. And I recommend anybody go taking a trip to a place like Cuba, where they don't, I tell you, with the embargo that was placed on them and them being a communist nation, and they don't get the luxuries. Oh, and we don't get to conceive that because we live over here in the Western world. They have so much that they don't get coming in. And it's ridiculous. And you can see the crookedness of Western world nations and Europe, and keeping stuff away from them and not aiding these type of nations, due to politics. And that's why I say politics is so corrupt. And It's really wicked. The politicians globally are the ones that should be answering, because the people suffer due to these politicians. And I'm really convinced of that. I don't care what party someone supports, there's usually crookedness and vile behaviors that are brought upon with that are nonsensical and lining their pockets. Just like even the Cuban country that I witnessed, the people that live there are wonderful people, and they're have so little, but yet their government has the audacity to charge in American funds when they don't even allow Americans in. Makes no sense now, does it? Especially when most of your funding comes in through Canadian sources. And their big thing is resorts. And really, when you look at the numbers, it's Canadians and Russians that go to Cuba, the bulk of. And it's mostly even more higher than Canadians. So really, you think how crooked and hypocritical even the government is crooked in taking it in by American dollar, because they know globally that's the strongest dollar. It shows you the hypocrisy, but yet they make their people suffer. Just like we have a lot of responsibility in that global because um, forecast, all of us, and we need to make our politicians accountable, because you put this all together, and that's why I say anybody who sits there has the audacity. And I know this has gone on for years, that a lot of Christian groups tied themselves to conservatism in politics. So those type of parties in the States and in Canada, and yet could be the worst crooks, just like any other political party. And when any party, and I say this very loud and clear, any party goes out saying volatile things, nasty, and spewing hatred, that is not a party that is supported by Christ. So the two don't go together, and that's, of course, the world system, but the Lord would tell you very clearly he would not support that. He would have much more feeling for a party that tries to help the less fortunate and the poor. That's where Jesus' heart was. So let's use common sense when we think of political parties, because none of them really, I'm not fond of politics anymore because of the crookedness within it. That's why it's almost like all the people need to hold them accountable. But if we're going to support somebody, we better make sure as if we are a disciple of Christ, we better make sure that it's a party that has the intentions of supporting and helping the less fortunate. Make sure, because that's where Christ's heart. That if Christ was on the earth, that's what he'd be doing. So make sure you're in tune. Anybody who's saying otherwise and attaching themselves to parties, that's a bunch of garbage. That's your own philosophy. That's not Christ's philosophy. So be careful getting caught up into that. But again, I can never thank my beautiful brother and sister-in-law for what I having the opportunity of having this trip and funded by them, and getting this experience. Um, Now I had the luxury of being able to take a lot of items to help people there, because I had the knowledge of the needs ahead of time. So that's where I put what little money I have that was saved up and threw it together, and a fair amount was spent on that to help out the locals there. And I'm thankful we got to do that. And that's why, like I say, my tithes are paid quite continually in my ministry. So, with that being said, I recommend get the experience, because I've never met a people, and I wish I could. It's so sad that they can't leave their country, because I would love to bring them back to North America to show our people graciousness and humbleness. These are a humble people, beautiful people from Cuba. I adore them. I've met many good friends. I've met many good, great Canadians there too that were on vacation. So I had a very great blessing with this trip, all the way around. Made great connections, and it's great to have that accomplished. And met many beautiful local Cuban people, and got the gist of the stories. I just don't know how I mean, some of these people, because they don't have vehicles or whatever, leave at like 6 a.m. And their big thing is tourism up there because they have nothing else as far as to run their economy. Tourism runs their economy. They rely on it. And they don't have money for vehicles or fancy. Some of them have houses, but now that's where costs get, where our countries get carried away with greed. They make the outrageous price for homes. So maybe some of them have homes. I don't know. But they're definitely much cheaper than they are here, more in a realm of realisticness. But they have so little that they live off. No simple things like I just said, salt, pepper, condiments. And so their food is very bland. So I say, if you're somebody who likes extravagance, don't go to Cayo Coco. If you're somebody who is good with a roof over your head, content with eating, just having some food, and it's definitely healthier food for you. It's not the greatest, for extravagance. So if you're going for those two reasons, don't go to Cayo Coco because you're not going to find that. But what you will find there, what I found there, was people, humans with beautiful spirits. Welcoming, the hospitality was beyond. These are people, like I said, I would have loved to have been able to, if it were possible, to bring some of them home to show people in our communities this is what we need to be like. We need to be grateful for the things we have. And I can't say enough. These people blew me away with, and so, yes, I made it a point that I will be helping these people out when I see the needs and their basic needs. So I'm glad that I had the opportunity to bring stuff up there. And our group brought stuff up there, thankfully. And so it was very spot on that way. But I will continue because I made some connections with some an awesome couple that work together there, have a family, and I really want to go out of my way to support them. Just other individuals that work there. And when you learn, like I say, I got to learn that there's a lot of nations, like we look at Dominican, that's bad enough that some of them make like $100 and something a month. But you go to Cuba, and I found this out right from the horse's mouth of what they take home. And this is also not with the limits if they eat there, because sometimes they're leaving at 6 a.m. to get on a bus to get to the resort in the morning. And it's like 3 or 4 hours away sometimes. Sometimes you got to leave earlier. But long bus rides they do to work. And if they have to eat on the resort, which they would have to, because they're not going to just go home and then come back. It's not the way it works. So the resorts know that they can take monies to cover their food and whatever else it is they need, amenities that are needed within their work time. They do deduct them for this. So, they can end up with what I spoke with several of them was $25 a month. Can you imagine? That's poverty. Now, however, our nations, are, and ours is, we're starting to head in that type of direction. You can see it by the greed with the lack uh, of affordable housing. Affordable housing in our government's eyes is affordable for whom? The rich. There's no affordable. So it's almost like we're starting to catch up in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years. We're making a drastic push forward to, because the costs are so extreme in our rents and stuff like that, and cost of living. We're, and then we have a part of our people make so little. Like I fall into that group, being on disability. You can't pay those type of fees to get by. But these people are even that much less. Now, I'm assuming their cost for affordable housing is probably a lot less than what it is here. So that might balance a little bit. But overall, I mean, they don't even have amenities that we have, natural things like I just told you, salt and pepper, toilet paper, things like that toothpaste, medications. They don't have, like, Tylenol. They don't get this stuff in their nation. It's kept from them from embargoes. They get very basic things. So can you imagine, even as down and out as we can be in a lack of funding in our country, we at least usually have the capacity of coming across Tylenol and the basics, salt and pepper, basic amenities. They don't. So we take it for granted, and we need to learn not to take it for granted. And I really pray that this is enlightening to folk. And I really say, if you want an experience, and especially for a country like this, that's probably one of the real hard hit. And I know there's countries in Africa that there's not even food. That we get situations like that. So there's more. But I know we got a lot of work to do as disciples of Christ, and we better get to it. And we aren't in a position to question things. That's why, like I say, it's sad when you run into church communities where you can go to, and I remember being, oh yeah, we'll support you. Pastors from churches and groups, oh, we'll support your cause. Taking that ministry, because my ministry focuses on tent encampments, and they make promises, but you can see where their heart lies. Then they bail out. They don't live up to the promises they made. That reminds you of some, like if you grew up in a household. I had a rough, and many have. You may have had experiences where you ran into alcoholics, and alcoholics are known for making promises. And I'm not a fan of people who make promises they can't keep. So when you put yourself as a church community and you fall into the category of you make false promises and you can't see what the Lord's overall view, don't make promises you can't keep. I don't buy it. You're not doing it for me. I'm just the hands and feet that are going to go into these places. You're not doing it for me. You're not helping me. It's whether your heart's going to help the everyday person. And we don't have the right to choose, because I know the one thing you got to see, I understand what some people that go to churches mean by it's the attitude of the poor there, that they're more gracious. And that's true. But we have a poor here, and though they've fallen into the Western world ways, and sometimes they don't show gratefulness, they run into a lot of drug addictions and learn how to do things that are falsely. But does that mean we have the right to keep from them and not aid them and help them? Jesus wouldn't do that. Let's make it clear. Jesus didn't pick and choose as far as the poor. He knew they all needed help. And that's who he came for. And we better get on the same page. And I call out anyone who has the audacity, I really say, check yourself. If you're not willing to do the work in your own backyards and you think you can pick and choose, you're placing judgment. You know what Jesus said about that? Be careful of your judgments, because you may be judged the same way. We got to be very, very careful in how we do things. We have a duty. We don't have a right. We are no better than anybody else. And if you're a disciple of Christ, we have a duty to do his work. That's why I say I don't expect to be paid to do this. I refuse to do anything that's on behalf of the Lord for money. Not going to happen. I owe Christ my life. That's why I was born. That's why we were all born, if you're a follower of Christ. Or if you're a disciple of Christ, you were born to preach the gospel, get it to the four corners of the earth, to praise your Creator, get his message out, get as many of the lost sheep into the herd. It's our duty. There's no way of repaying God the Father for putting his Son on this earth, and his Son giving up his life for us, shedding his blood so we could be forgiven and enter into eternal life with him. You and I can't replace that. We don't have the authority or the right to think for one moment we get to call the shots on who is to be helped, or, oh, I'm not doing that. You better be willing. And if you're not willing, do something that can aid the ministry going into different ministries. And you should be always willing to work with all ministries that are on behalf of Christ. We need to work together. You don't get, I mean, how dare us to, oh, well, that's not my type of ministry. I'm not going to support it. We need to be on the page of supporting all ministries together and working on it together. However, so I am very fortunate that I have run into organizations that are on the same page. Thank goodness, because when you run into situations of those who make promises and false promises at that, and think that their little game of the ministry, the mission fields are it, and their whatever they have within their church is it, and they pick and choose and don't think that, or they give their funding to anybody with common sense knows organizations like UNICEF, like Food Bank. If you have any knowledge, you realize, and I have firsthand knowledge of it, you're really making a mistake if you're funding that. There are better ways to go. You can go out and buy food and do a better job of it, where they're calling in the shots of who can get it, and they're paying salaries, and enormous salaries. And I've seen that. Outrageous salaries. I've seen that in the line of work where I've been involved in. I got to see it firsthand. And when I see numbers that don't match what you're doing, that are matching closer to doctors and nurses numbers, and actually more so doctors and lawyers, to tell you the truth. When I see that being paid into workers in a food bank, well, there's something wrong. But yet we'll get churches that'll support that more so. So to enlighten the churches, they really need to know what's going on and how the better avenues to support. But we pick and choose not to support people that are roofs over their head, no food, living in tents in the cold, and then people abroad that we're not aiding because they're in communist countries. We better be very careful. We are doing a disservice to Christ, and we better get our act together. Now, I'm calling on myself as well, but I'm also calling out those who want to make false promises. Be careful what you're doing, because you're going to be called upon and you're going to be held accountable. Don't look at it as a game. That's why I took I knew the Lord was pushing me in this area to do this work. I don't have a choice in this matter. It's not right for me to. And, I'm glad a year ago or whatever it is that I got off my tush and made this my response to do his work. I just don't have the right to say no, and none of us do. And we don't have the right to judge and not aid every group that's in dire straits and in necessity. So I pray that all of you, if you get the chance, it is a wonderful experience, even if you're going somewhere on vacation. And if you're a follower of Christ like myself, well, being a disciple, you're never on vacation that way. So I got to take in a lot to see through, and I seen wonderful people. I made wonderful Canadian connections, and I've seen some nasty stuff from. Oddly enough, I had two bad experiences. One of them was on the plane trip, more of the plane ride up and down, and one was also uh, a particular individual that was above me. And oddly enough, they're both Canadians, and you can see the nasty attitudes, and it just shows you the Western world has got this. They're entitled attitude, and like Cayo, they have a lot of cats on the resort, okay, and there's a purpose for it. It's purpose to keep rats and mice off the resort, and we won't see a rat or a mouse because the cats take care of that. And so everybody knows going there that that's the issue. Then you get these individuals, which was a case of someone that was above me, and oddly enough was from Quebec. and had a nasty attitude towards animals. And you see a few comments like that sometimes on posts. Do you have that much hatred against animals that are innocent? Kind of question that. What type of individual are you? And then, with that same particular individual that was above me that wanted to hurt animals, also, you've seen this with a younger couple, and it's sad. You're there to, your whole mission, you can't believe what you're seeing, and then it's a bad example of a Canadian, and it really bothers you because you're from there. And you see these would be 20 some odd year olds, and then running around with no clothing, if you know what I'm talking about, wanting attention. And if you want that type of attention, you know what a type of attention that is, and it's not good attention. So that was disheartening. Now, I can say, at least with that individual, we kind of had connections where we managed to get along. So it was good in that regard. Now, the individual on the flight had this I'm entitled attitude, didn't know us from anybody, but was looking at others as lower than themselves. And really, funny enough, tried to make it a personal thing. And I had no idea who these folks are. And I'm sitting there wondering, okay, you're actually getting physical in an inadvertent. I won't even go into detail of it, but when you go out and you deliberately, like most people, when they're bumping into each other, sorry, you're excusing yourself on a plane. This particular party was a high and mighty type that was, and you could see they were getting a kick out of their behaviors. Uh, they're entitled, and it just shows you. And again, here we go, Canadian. Now, that's not to knock the rest of Canada. We have lots of great, because I met tons of great Canadians there. Tons. So let's not mistake that. But it just shows you, you get the oddballs, but yet they're from our own nation, the Western world. So yeah, managing to get through that process of someone trying to start something, and yet uh, very questionable the type of individuals they were. I could just only pray for them. Really, I was upset. Mind you, make no mistake about it. People make the mistake they think we're pushovers because we're serving the Lord. No, I'm not a pushover. So make no mistake of that. Um, but I'm glad the Lord got me through that, because it was challenging to get through this when someone makes an attack on you personally, and you're doing an awful lot of praying that you don't end up responding the way easily can happen. And you would have the right to respond that way, but thankfully the Lord keeps you. That's all I can say. But I'm not saying be a pushover, but that's what I experienced. But anyway, it's great that I experienced. The bulk of it was a tremendous blessing of the people of Cuba. And I say, you get the opportunity, go to a nation like that, or to there. Cayo. It's a beautiful place to go, as long as you're not somebody who wants something extravagant. Um, if you can accept a roof over your head, basic food, the people go out of their way for you to be as hospitable. They are wonderful people. I can't say enough about them. I just met so many wonderful Cuban people that were from there, and felt very honored and wished that people from the Western world could see this for themselves, because I think far too often we get lost and think we're entitled. So anyway, with that being said, I want to thank you, and I'm just going to say thank you, Jesus. Hopefully this blesses someone and touches their heart, and that we can do a work together in your name, and that it honors you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next episode. God bless you.